I think she needs no introduction, but I will just read it out for those who still may not know her. Sis Sylvia Bay has dedicated herself to the study and practice of the Buddha's teachings since 1992. She holds a BA Honours in Buddhist Studies from the Buddhist and Pali University of Sri Lanka and was a lecturer with her alma mater. She also has a Master's in International Public Policy from Johns Hopkins School of Advanced Studies. Since 2001, Sis Sylvia has been a regular speaker on Buddhist doctrines and their practical applications at local and regional Buddhist organizations. In 2013, she published her first book, Between the Lines, an analytical appreciation of the Buddha's life. She is now working on another book titled Towards the Light, the Buddha's Guide to a Heavenly Rebirth. And Sis Sylvia is also Buddhist Fellowship's Dharma advisor. So we are really grateful for her to come for all our talks, and welcome, Sis Sylvia. Over to you.
Your technical crew is very good. Okay. Part 2. Who was the Buddha? Biographical information is only part of the story. And I think that for a more complete idea of who the Buddha was, we should look at his character, personality, his motivations, life's work, achievements, and so on. So this is what we're going to cover tonight. We're going to look at his work, his personality, his achievements. Okay? Now, on life's work, there's actually a lot to say about Buddha. But tonight, I'm going to focus only on 2 aspects. The 2 aspects that have the most relevant to us. To us, 2,500/600 years later. The most direct relevant to the modern man. Okay? Dharma propagation work, his teaching career. Now, this morning, we end with Buddha agreeing to teach. He hesitated. Remember, he hesitated for a while. But then, after he considered, he scanned the world, he looked at people's mind, then he said, yes, there are individuals with little dust in their eyes, who have good qualities, with well-developed faculties. In other words, there are people with what it takes to understand Dhamma. Because of the presence of those individuals, the Buddha decided he will do it. He will teach the Dhamma. So once he has decided, the Buddha, he moved very fast. He doesn't waste time thinking, reviewing, planning, and he just go. So I call him a precision missile. Clear, swift, focused, direct. He knew exactly whom he wanted to convert. He wanted to teach. He walked. Mind you, he walked. He didn't use psychic power. Don't waste time. Don't waste energy. He walked 255 kilometers from Uruwela, where he was enlightened. Bodhigaya. You all know it as Bodhigaya. So Bodhigaya, where he had his enlightenment experience, and he spent some time there. Some traditionally they say about 7 weeks, but actually it is they work backward from when he unveiled the Dhamma to when they estimated his enlightenment. They say, oh, this is the period he spent that time there. Exactly how long he spent in Uruwela, we don't know. Minimally 4 weeks, but whether or not it's 7, we don't know. But we know that he walked that distance, because today, if you go to India, you go from Uruwela to where he taught, Isipatana, Benares, it's about 255 kilometers. So he walked 255 kilometers to go to 5 monks, or 5 ascetics, the 5 who abandoned him. There is a lesson there, if you think about it. Okay. Oh, by the way, okay, let me just explain this part, the story here. When he decided to teach, he thought through whom in his mind had what it takes to understand the Ma. So the first 2 names that he thought of were his former teachers, Alara Kalama, Udaka Ramaputta. Remember? The names were mentioned this morning. Then he was informed, these 2 have passed on, no longer human. So he said, okay, then who else? Then in his mind, these 5 individuals, the 5 ascetics who had been with him. Okay, that's why he walked the distance from Uruwela to Benares Deer Park to teach them. Then after he was done teaching them, he walked 255 kilometers back to where he started to teach another group of people. So it's actually quite incredible. He didn't waste time setting up school where he was, and he needed to be sure that the first group of people he targeted, they would understand the Dhamma. Okay. Now, the people whom he targeted in the initial period belong to 3 categories. Those that he handpicked, those who sought him out, and then the ones who are what we call chance meeting. By the way, they ran into him. Their karma beautiful. They managed to run into Buddha. So 3 groups of people. The one that he handpicked, that 5 monks, the 5 ascetics. I keep calling them monks, the 5 ascetics. I told you he walked 255 kilometers to teach them, right? Then he walked back 255 kilometers to teach another group. The second group that he targeted were called the Kassapa brothers and their followers. And this group, they are ascetics. Both sets, the 5 initial ones and this group of 1,000 plus 3, 1,003, they are all ascetics. What does it mean by ascetics? It means that they have already left lay life. They were practicing. They knew something was wrong about the regular life. They felt that dukkha. So they devoted their time to cultivation of the mind. It's because they have devoted their time to cultivation of the mind, these guys had what we call spiritual maturity. There is a readiness and openness for Dhamma. They were looking for answers to liberation. They were already looking. Buddha only had to connect with them. They have the faculties. If the Buddha could connect with them, they will understand. So his focus has to be to reach out to their mind, to get them to open up to him. So for details on what he did with them, refer to the book. Okay? Now, in the initial period, these were the ones, but subsequently, in the later part of his life, there were other handpicked candidates. For those of you who are not familiar with the Buddha's life, I provide some names here. Okay? 7-year-old Supaka, he retrieved, 7-year-old, mind you, this is a 7-year-old boy who was abandoned by his father, or his stepfather, dumped in the cemetery. Actually, the stepfather wanted him to die. So the poor boy was crying. He was terrified. Look, wouldn't you be? This is a cemetery, you know. Well, in ancient time, it would be like bodies littered around. They may or may not be buried. It's just a place where they dump the body. And the boy was there, and he was crying. Buddha knew this boy can realize, went to him, retrieved him. And the boy actually entered the stream listening to the Buddha. So this is really a case where Right place, right time, he get it. He made a whole congregation wait for the teenage daughter of a weaver. Have you heard of the weaver's daughter, the famous story? Okay, maybe not. Just a long story short, there was this young girl, a teenage, heard the Buddha speak one time. He's a village girl, uneducated, simple person. Heard the Buddha speak about mortality one time. And the Buddha told the congregation, spend your life reflecting on mortality, on death. And this girl, very good girl, for the entire year, entire year, day in, day out, she reflected on death. And one day, when the Buddha, 1 year later, when the Buddha scanned the world, he knew this girl ready. Her mind was ready. She spent an entire day, an entire year reflecting on death, and the mind was ready. Buddha made a special trip to her village, which of course got really excited. Second time Buddha's back, they're all very excited. The whole village adjourned for the Dhamma hall. Every village has a Dhamma hall, by the way. It's a speaker corner of the village. So the whole village elders, everyone all congregated there, waited for Buddha to start talking. Buddha scanned and saw that the girl wasn't there. He waited quietly. So he sat, waited. The girl had her errands to run. Until she appeared, Buddha refused to talk. The whole hall was just silently waiting with him. So when she came, they had a conversation. With that conversation, she entered the stream. Okay, this girl entered the stream. That same day, she died. So the Buddha went there to help her enter stream so that she wouldn't be lost. That's the charity, the compassion of the Buddha. And then this Angulimala, a serial killer. I always say he's the most prolific serial killer of the world. Even if it was not 999 people he killed, it was still a lot of people he killed. Okay? And the Buddha went out of his way, entered the forest. You just imagine, we spend our life dodging killers or dodging angry people. We don't need killer. The fellows go, we also don't want to go near. This is a guy known to kill. The Buddha went to stop him from killing what would have been his mother. And if he had done the deed, he would have ended in hell. So Buddha took it upon himself to retrieve him, to save him. Okay? On his own. These are the ones handpicked. Okay? The ones who sought him out, who came to the Buddha, minimally they were curious about his teaching. So there were two types. There were the types who were curious. They are kind of join the crowd and follow, this is a celebrity monk, so they must go and see celebrity monk and get his autograph, that kind of thing. Then there were the ones who are actually very keen to meet him. Anathapindika was one of those very keen to meet him. Bimbisara was one of those very keen Bimbisara. Sariputta, Moggallana, Vesak, these are the ones, they all, FIL is father-in-law, Vesak and her father-in-law. So these are the ones who, maybe not father-in-law, but the rest, Anathapindika, Sariputta, Moggallana, Vesak, these are the ones who went to him. They looked for him, they sought him out. And they understood. All of them understood. In fact, Sariputta and Moggallana, we all know, eventually became first and second chief disciples. They came to play major role in the growth of the Sasana. And some of them, whom he taught, he converted, some of them were desperate. They ran into him. Some of them were desperate. They ran into him. They went to him because they desperately needed his help. And many of the ones who sought him out were women. If you go look at a text called Therigatha, the songs or the verses of the nuns. You go look into that Terigata, you will find a lot of them went to him because they lost their son. They lost their child. They were hoping that he could help them salvage their lay life. Their position in the family depended on producing a boy. Because they failed to, or because the child died, they were lost. Okay? Most of these would enter the stream. Most of these. But the famous couple, Pasenadi, King Pasenadi of Kosala and Queen Malika were the two famous couple who were devoted to the Buddha, but they never entered the stream. So later commentaries then had to explain why. Why everyone else did, but these two didn't. And then they all say, oh, because these guys are going to be the future Buddhas and so on and so forth. These are all commentaries. They just didn't have the conditions. That's all. We don't know why. It doesn't matter. But because they had served the Buddha and the Sangha in their life, in future lives, they are fine. These two will be fine. Okay? There were the ones who were curious. They followed the crowd, hoping to be entertained. Nothing very much came out of their encounters with the Buddha. But, you know, they encountered Buddha. Maybe we were there. In a different time, maybe we were there. One of those hanging around in the crowd, but don't know what to do. Not very bright then. Okay, anyhow, then the other point which I wanted to make is that, you know, the little the verse that we chant, right? Homage to the Buddha, Iti Piso, Bhagawa, Arahan. That is his calling card. In ancient time, you see, in ancient time, people also need to spread word about each other. So-and-so has, calling card means so-and-so has a certain reputation. So when they talk about so-and-so, this is a stanza that they will talk about. Is it true that this is all he's known? Maybe the way they say is a bit different, we don't know. But for sure, some of the key elements there, the key elements of that stanza refers to Buddha, and he's known for that. He was known to be a great teacher, and he could teach being seen, unseen. He was known for his psychic powers. He was known for his compassion, his immaculate, pure conduct. Immaculate. He was known for his great wisdom. You know what I'm saying? So these were words that talk about what he had accomplished. And then when people listen to the words, they say, oh, this is a really great man. We must see him. So that's why I say that stanza that we chant today, in the past, was what he was known for. He was known to be all those qualities, to have all those qualities. Okay? Chance meeting. Chance meeting means they ran into him. Because of their good fortune, they ran into him. And in this case, it didn't always work out. Not all the time. Sometimes it did, sometimes it didn't. It's chance means chance lah. 50-50, it can work out or it didn't. So we know, I'm not sure if you are familiar, but right after the Buddha's enlightenment, there was one human that he met. Not the two merchants. Not Tapusa Balika who came and dana him. There was another man that he met. It's a Brahmin, okay? And the Brahmin in the sutta is called, I think he's called the arrogant Brahmin or something like that. It's arrogant man. And it was Buddha himself who talked about the Brahmin. This guy came, had an exchange with him, not interested, left. In fact, he didn't even hear a discourse. He wasn't even interested. Then there was another one that he ran into. Actually, there were more than one. There was another one that he ran into on his way. On his way to Benares, he ran into another person. And this other person said, oh, you look so good. You look so good. At that time, he didn't call him Buddha. He said, you look very nice. And he said, sorry, the Brahmin said, you look very good. Your complexion is lovely. So we know he was good looking. Huh? Buddha looks good. And the next question was, who's your teacher? What is your doctrine? And the Buddha said, I have no teacher. I realized the doctrine myself. The guy not impressed. 35, black hair, chap, realize your own doctrine. Not very impressive lah. He left. So this was the first failure in the history of the world. Ran into the Buddha, came up with nothing. So sad, right? Can you just imagine? Anyway. And then you have the ones who entered stream through a chance encounter. The story of Nakula Pitu, Nakula Mata, the first Valentine couple in Buddhist history. Life after life after life born together. So in love, ask the Buddha, how do we guarantee we'll come back together again? So I call them the first Valentine couple. It's so sweet, right? This old couple. Anyway, Buddha ran into the father, into the old man, while he was collecting alms in the streets. Old man ran into him and called him, my son, this is the one. My son, my son, my son. And then the other, everyone going, say what? I thought your father is Sakyan. What is this guy? And then this old man went, come, your mother waiting for you. So dragged him home. Buddha followed him home. It turned out that in past lives, this was indeed his son. So he ran into him. You can see how attached the old man is, right? Husband and wife, so attached, they must be reborn again. So attached, recognize the Buddha on the street as my son. Drag this monk home to show off the wife. Look, who's back? Our boy is back. So happy he was. But because of that exchange, the old couple was willing to listen to our boy. He was willing to sit down and pay attention. They were satisfied already. They're very happy to see him. They were satisfied. The mind was calm down. Buddha gave them a discourse. They entered the stream. So isn't that lovely? But after entering stream, mind you, still ask, how do we get back together again? After we reset button, how do we get back together? Stream enterers, mind you. These are stream enterers who ask, sir, now that I know you are not a boy, okay, sir, how do we get back together? Isn't that sweet, right? This is a lovely story. It's a very romantic story. In fact, if you go through the suttas, you will come across another one where he fell very sick. He fell very sick. And the wife told him, you got to let go. Don't worry, I'll be fine. You go. If it's your time to go, you go. Don't worry about that. I am going to be fine. So she proclaimed her own stream enterer position. And old man, and subsequently, old man recovered. Uncle recovered. And the wife, of course, Buddha affirmed that she was indeed a stream enterer, and he was indeed a stream enterer. But their devotion to each other like that, lor. Patachara, the very famous one, lost her entire family in the night. Husband, children, parents, lost her entire family in the night, went crazy, went insane, stripped off her clothes and ran around naked. Ran into the Buddha. By chance, she ran into the Buddha. Buddha wasn't even planting himself there to wait for her. He just ran into him. And the Buddha told her, stop it, wake up. And she woke up. She regained her sanity and then entered the order as a nun. Realized Nibbana, became an Arahant. So these are all the chance meetings. I can get carried away telling stories, so you all must stop me. But the most celebrated, and I declare it, I declare that one of the most celebrated chance encounter, one of the most beautiful chance encounter was that of Yasa and Buddha. Yasa, okay, so you remember Buddha went 255 kilometers to teach 5 ascetics. After a few days, it's not meet, boom, enlightened. It actually took him a few days. So he was probably perfecting his method of training, okay? His method of teaching, he was tweaking it. When they had realized, so he got 5 already, Buddha went on vacation. He kind of wandered off, sat under the tree. And in the morning, early morning, Yasser wandered out. So we know Yasser stayed in Benares. Yasser wandered out, ran into the Buddha. And as he was wandering around aimlessly, Yasser was going, dukkha, dukkha, painful, painful. This is so painful. If he had not ran into the Buddha, I wouldn't put it past Yasser to kill himself. He was in so much pain. Buddha called out to him and said, Yasser, come here. There's no pain here. Come. So Yasser sat. And I cut a very long story short. Yasser entered the stream, listening to one exchange with the Buddha. Yasser family, Yasser father, Yasser mother, Yasser wife, all eventually entered stream from exchanges with Buddha. Even better, Yasser brought along 55 monks. 55 friends. Yasser was obviously very popular. 54, I think. 54, right? Eileen? 54. Plus him 55, yes. So 54 friends. Yasser brought along 54 friends. Whether or not the number is indeed 54, but the point is Yasser was very popular and had a lot of friends who then all came looking for him, wondering what happened. And they all joined the order. They all left home. All these boys were Asyakya, They were children of rich family, all like Buddha and this kind of pattern. So all of them parked their Lamborghini outside and joined the order. So just imagine, and they all became arahants. So it was an extremely successful first month. It's extremely successful because all these men, young men of rich family, joined the order, became Sangha, and they were the world first Arya Sangha. 61 of them. And Buddha, I wanted you to read this. This is the beginning of Sangha. So you must read these words. He told the monks, he said, I am free from all shackles, human or divine. You too are free from shackles. Shackles of the mind, shackles of Mara, shackles of your taste buds. Their mind is all liberated. Go now, wander for the welfare, happiness of many, out of compassion for the world, for the benefit, welfare, and happiness of gods and men. They are all realized. You all know that. Now for the benefit, welfare, happiness of the world, go teach Dhamma. Good in the beginning, good in the middle, good in the end, meaning and the letter. That means the words in themselves are beautiful. The spirit, the essence of that teaching is beautiful. Explain a holy life that is utterly pure, perfect and pure. There are beings with little dust in the eyes who will be lost through not hearing the Dhamma. Some will understand. So the connecting point, these are all key words here. Sangha, realize, teach, for benefit, welfare, happiness of everyone. And the ones with little dust, where the conditions are right in their mind, they will understand. But if they had never come before the Dhamma, they will be lost. Because this is ancient time. This is not this age. Ancient time means if you don't run into the Buddha or his disciples, you are lost. But what are the chances? So the Buddha said, go find them. Go make yourself available. Go find them. Go make yourself available. Go do it. And it was one such chance encounter that brought a Saji to Sariputta. It's a chance encounter, mind you. You know how many lives of merits we have to do to get that kind of condition? So never underestimate the merits. Tireless propagator of Dhamma earlier on, right? So now I'm going to talk about the Buddha being an incomparable teacher of gods and men, okay? Buddha was incredibly gifted as a teacher. I had to write these words because they are so, I was like so seized when I was writing this, right? I said, all the words must come in. Incredibly gifted, astounding success in conversion. You look at his success. Today we look for good stuff, good student. Buddha, dim-witted. There was one student who, after don't know how many months, could not memorize one stanza. You guys took how long to remember Iti Piso Bhagawa Arahan? How long did you take? I don't know, maybe a few days. But this poor chap took months and couldn't do one stanza. Every day memorized leh. So he was slow. But Buddha managed to get him across the finishing line. He was an Arahan. It's Chula Pantaka, very famous. Because Chula Pantaka's story gives us all hope. The young, you remember Supaka? 7-year-old. But he's not the only one 7-year-old. If you go into the books, you will find there are many little ones. So don't underestimate the kids from our hula class, okay? The insane Patachara, the story, the mad craze killer, Angulimala. But not all are success. There's Devadatta. Now, these are some of the stories. You go into my book, you will find all these stories. Okay? But right now, I'll just tell you a few of them. Devadatta, you all know, his cousin. The only one in the Sakyan family who was a dismal failure. The only one. Because he allowed his akusala to get the better of him. So he lost his way. And he wouldn't find his way back. So many eons down, there will be a remnant Sakyan family person who will come on and become a Pachika Buddha because he can't learn from anyone. He can only learn from himself. So Devadatta, according to Buddha, will one day become Pachika Buddha because of his own practice. But what it tells you is he can't learn from anyone. He can only learn from himself, realize by himself, work out his own conditions. Okay? Sati, this is not mindfulness. This Sati is a fisherman son, who came up with the idea of a permanent consciousness. So this is the one, the permanent consciousness that goes life through life. The Gang of Six, all these are very famous. If you go into the suttas, you will find them. Buddha had a whole bunch of monks who gave him problems. And these are a sample diet. Okay? The Gang of Six bully other people, cause trouble for everyone else, cause trouble for Sariputta, cause trouble for everyone. That was I call them the thugs, the monastic thugs of the Buddha's order. And they will all fail, not because the Buddha couldn't teach. It's nothing to do with that. It's all because of their own akusala. The greed, the anger, the jealousy, the ego, that was their problem. Okay? Now, some of the Buddha's skills, some things you cannot replicate. This was a great man who perfected his parami through lives. We cannot replicate that. Some are impossible to replicate. So I said his personal charisma. This is individual. How do you replicate charisma or mind reading or psychic powers? But having said that, it is not to say that we cannot learn other things from him, and we should. Number one, right motivations. You want to be a Dhamma teacher, you have to have the heart in the right place. You are teaching because you're serving the Dhamma. You're not teaching to make yourself famous, to make yourself like, to have fortune. You are serving Dhamma. You must be doing it for, you remember what the Buddha said? For the welfare, benefit, and happiness of others. That is foremost, first and foremost, your motivation. It has to be pure. It cannot be about you. It has to be about the people that you serve and the Dhamma that you serve. So right motivation from the Buddha, this we can replicate. This we can constantly remind ourselves. Next, according to Buddha, a good teacher must observe 5 principles. Must be able to teach step by step. Must be able to explain in details. Teaching, this is where we say the right motivation. Teaching out of kindness, not secretly hoping to benefit, to profit, and without hurting himself or others. So if you teach with the wrong motivations, or if you teach wrongly because your knowledge is incomplete, because your understanding is weak, for whatever reasons, if you teach, you will hurt yourself and others. So this is Anguttara Nikaya 5.159 with Udayi, okay? Next, Buddha, we know this. You go through the sutta, you will see this. He was a compelling, engaging speaker with excellent communication skills. He was able to play with words beautifully. Play with words. But of course, we are not Pali speaker. We don't know when he's playing with his words, with the words. He was able to keep his audience mesmerized. It is often, okay, pin drop silent means is so quiet. Okay, we have come across sutta where someone went, got scolded by the others because they don't want to miss a word that the Buddha was saying. And then you, what? Seriously? Disturb the quiet. Okay? He was able to project his voice. We know that the halls are big. So the acoustic must have been really good. They are acoustic, right? So that when he speaks across the hall, they can hear. Clever use of words, play of words. His material, structured, organized, logical, relevant. So, as a Dhamma teacher, this you can do, ma. You can learn how to structure your talk, organize it, make it relevant, make it logical. This can be learned. The speaking, there are courses which train people to speak well publicly, so can learn. So these are the ones that I'm saying can be learned. You may not be able to speak as well as the Buddha, but you know, that shouldn't be your bar. We make do with lower. As long as your audience is not all falling asleep, it's okay. So as long as someone's awake, it's okay. Creative teaching style. Buddha was very creative. He will make use of everything he can use and make it relevant to the point that he's making. He's in a forest, he grabbed dirt, leaves, right? In the forest. He will use analogies, all kinds of analogies. That actually tells you that Buddha Buddha must have been very observant. Look, we all know he never made weapon. He was not a weapon maker. But he can use the making of weapons as an analogy about the practice. Irrigation. Buddha wasn't an engineer. We know that. We know he was a warrior, right? But he wasn't an engineer. But he can talk about irrigation. How do you direct water, river? He talks about weighing gold. Buddha wasn't a goldsmith, but he can talk about weighing gold. He even talked about magicians. So it was extremely creative, using analogy directly relevant to his audience. his audience was mainly agricultural farmers, villagers, farmers, hunters, people who sell trades and all. And his teaching, you will see many fishing analogy, herding analogy, agricultural analogy, plowing analogy, you name it, he has it. He had this conversation with a farmer. He used everything about farming to talk to the farmer. At the end of this conversation, now you mind you, farmer started off going, you want to eat, you must work. That was the beginning part of his conversation. Kasi biar wajana. Okay? At the end of the conversation, the farmer went, please accept my bowl of food. That's the one. Okay? Now, Buddha never talked about theoretical. We talk about the 10 unanswerable, the 10 things that he will not answer. They are all theoretical. So he will not talk about those. Focus on what is directly relevant. The point here is know with clarity essentials from non-essentials. And this phrase, essential from non-essentials, is something that I carried with me all this, from the day I saw this phrase from a Dhammapada verse to today. This is a phrase I will always bear in mind. Because many a times, if you look at how we think about things, we are caught up in different angles of all kinds of things. We think, and then we get also tied up in knots. But I always ask myself, learning from the Buddha, what's essential? What's critical? Focus on those, the rest doesn't matter. And it makes life a lot easier. Okay? Buddha was sensitive to listeners, so he can read the audience behavior. The first behavioral scientist looking at the audience. If you come into his talk hungry, he can provide food. He has been known to provide food. Okay? A farmer went around looking for his lost buffalo. Finally, he went for the Buddha's talk. The Buddha stopped and said, you eat first. Ask the monk to feed him. So this is the first lay person eating off arms round from the monk. Dana from monk. He was mindful of temperament, mindful of background, the experience of the individual. He tailored his delivery. So what is the story here? A teacher, a speaker cannot just speak from your perspective. You have to always ask, what is it that the audience need? What kind of experience they have had? What is their temperament? It's as much as possible. Then you say, oh, varied. Okay, jalat ready lah. Then make sure you have a bit of something for everybody. And that's where it gets challenging, but it can be done. And this part, this last point that I want to make about a teacher, you look at the words said, instructing, exalting, inspiring, gladdening. For me, that is the mark of a beautiful teaching. When the Buddha has finished speaking, you know the phrase that we use today, sadhu, 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 right? Actually, it is a reflection. It's an ancient phrase where his audience got so happy, they will yell at the top of their voice, we are so pleased, well said. Actually, what it means is well said. Then we give it a Pali class, sadhu. Well, actually, it means they're so happy, they exclaim to show gratitude and approval. They are happy. And you will find that suttas after suttas, it's all about the audience responding with joy. And you say, because the sutta will say, you're recalling his words. So of course the sutta will say it worked. Buddha inspired and gladdened them. Yes, we know of one sutta where that didn't happen. And the fact that it was put in and said it didn't happen tells you it's not 100% it will happen. Not 100% that it will work. It's just 99.99999 times it worked. The 0.0001 time it didn't. Okay? And that is in Majjhima Nikaya 1. Mula Pariyaya Sutta, right? Mula Pariyaya Sutta, yeah. Vajramana Kanya 1. Okay. This is actually very interesting. You read the words, okay? This is actually to remind me to make this point. He actually taught his student how to debate other schools. This point was in reference to teaching his student how to argue, how to hold the Dhamma fort against other schools. Why was this important? Because in ancient India, in his time, there were actually many schools. Buddha was one of 7 of the most renowned school of the day. One of 7. There were 6 others plus himself. This was the big one. The Harvard, Cambridge, the big schools. And if your students were not able to hold the Dhamma fort, there are consequences. The consequences is people's mind will go elsewhere. Now, Buddha, this is not about pride. This was about Dhamma. Why do I say that? You all know what Dhamma means. If you get it, it will enrich your lives for lives to come. Imagine because of poor debating strength, it's just one person who cannot hold the ground. And the result is people are not impressed. Everybody wander off, looking for wrong teaching. There are consequences in lives to come. So the Buddha wasn't teaching them so that they can fly his Buddha flag. He was teaching them to make sure that the Dhamma stay on track, stay relevant, continue to impress, continue to bring people to the Dhamma. There is a reason for that, okay? It is not about pride. Specifically on question and answers, this was actually quite cute. He taught them how to answer question. Some question, you answer definitively. Yes, no, yes or no. Don't need to say so much. You must know. Some question, you must answer it analytically. It is not so simple. You must give detail, provide explanation, give context, background, and so on. Some question, do you even know why they're asking that question? So you must counter with a question. They ask you a question, you ask a question back just to be sure you know what he is asking, okay? And some question don't answer. So today, we must also know this. We must understand that there are sometimes you can answer categorically, don't beat around the bush. There are some times that you better think through very carefully and you explain in details. There will be times when you don't just fly and answer. Take one step back, breathe, ask him, do you mean this? What exactly do you mean? Let's explore your question again. And don't every question also must answer. Some question no need to answer. So Eileen, you know, some question don't ask. Okay. And this to me is really the mark of the Buddha, the mark of a really great man. Don't be defensive. Don't get carried away. Don't feel prideful when they praised him. Don't get defensive when they criticize him. Focus on the Dhamma. Be objective. Be equanimous. Clarify the points. Don't get defensive. So this is the point. Clarify misunderstanding. Explain factually. Don't react with anger to criticisms or delight to praises. He was teaching his monk to be equanimous, to always bear in mind the Dhamma. No need to get caught up. Don't be affected by identity, in other words. And this is really very telling for us. Sometimes we get defensive. Sometimes we say, no, Buddha's the greatest. So we get defensive. Buddha doesn't get upset. We get upset for him. So that's not very wise. Okay. Buddha was dedicated, meticulous, personally, mind you, personally, proactively coached individual. He visited monks, individual monks, to check on meditation progress. And this, I know some of you will be wondering, what is this story about playing doorman for a young Samanera? There was this monk, this is all can be found in Dhammapada. There was this monk who had what it takes to realize the conditions were all right for him to realize that day. Then he saw Sariputta was going to, this is a Sariputta's disciple. So Sariputta was going to check on his little disciple, and he's a small boy, to ask him, how you understand or not? But he was meditating, and Buddha knew if Sariputta went in, jam already. The boy lost his moment. So he got to plant himself outside to stop Sariputta from entering, to disturb the boy. And then he had a conversation with Sariputta outside the door. And lo and behold, the boy, and this is not enter stream, this is Arahan. Okay, the final point. We know that he gave regular evening talks. Buddha's Dhamma all delivered in the evening. The formal session, when he sat down, the monks came together to listen. It's the evening. How do we know that it's evening? Because it said so in the sutta, the moon and all. But actually, we knew that also, if you think about it, right? Last time got no aircon. India can get very hot, right? So when would you give a talk? Evening lah, where it is cooler. But we also know he was sick. Sometimes he was in pain, because halfway through the talk, he said, I'm going to lie down. Sariputta continue. He lie down in front of his disciples. So they're all sitting around, everyone was sitting around, and Buddha was lying down there, resting his back. He had back problems. Buddha was caring and compassionate. I'm sure you all know of these stories. These are stories all found in suttas. I said he took his custodial duties very seriously. You remember the story of Kosambi? Yes, good girl. Okay, Kosambi was when the Vinaya monks and the Dhamma monks had this big fight in this monastery, Gosita Rama monastery, and they were having all this tension and fights, and it got so bad that when the Buddha told them, stop, don't fight. Be charitable in your thoughts about each other. And they told him, Buddha, you go and be pleasant abiding. So basically they told the Buddha, you go away, you get lost. We will handle this. Let it be on our karma. You go. So Buddha left. He left. He took out his robe, he took his bow, he went to the forest. Yes, you all know this story, right? Just before he went to the forest, he stopped by to visit his cousins. Just before he went to the forest. So in case, because he's going to be away, he knew he was going to be away for a while. He had to make sure his cousins are okay. But then the Sakyans have entered the order. So he stopped by. He asked them, you guys okay? Are you guys having enough to eat? You're adjusting nicely? You're okay, right? Okay, bye-bye. so he went off. This thing about introducing rules on distribution of resources, it was because of the 6 monks. Okay, the monks were all traveling together somewhere, right? And I don't know why. Okay, you see, you can imagine, right? Arahan monks are not going to fight with you for resources. They will be very mindful, measured. They will do their own thing mindfully, quietly, gently, right? Then the not enlightened one, what will happen? Chop the best place, chop the bathing, chop the room to rest in, right? So that was exactly what happened. I cannot remember exactly where this place was, but they all settled down and Sariputta got no place to sleep. He ended up sleeping outside. All the other monks slept inside, but he slept outside. Because he didn't fight with everyone else. He's Sariputta, he doesn't fight one. So the Buddha came to know that his first chief disciple slept under the tree, set the rules. The monks, the senior monks, means how many wasa, they get to choose first. Everyone else take number to protect the senior monks, the arahants. Tisa, also, you can find the story in Dhammapada. Tisa was this monk who was dying, but because he was bursting in boils, he stung to high heaven. So all the monks just left him to rot in a corner. Buddha with Ananda bathed this monk. Now, we know that by the time Buddha had Ananda as his regular companion, Buddha was at least 55 years old. So he was not a young man. The Buddha, 20 plus years already, the great teacher, bent down to wash this monk. So that was how he is, how he was. Okay. I can go on. And this is just a sample of what he was like. Buddha, we know, was very approachable. Okay. He didn't have rules that you must bow to him this way, that way, don't have. No rules. You can do whatever you want. And people would just go to him. The monks are very cute. We know of monks who wait outside his door because he will meditate in the day. At night, he will come out. That's why I said the Dhamma talk is at night. He'll meditate in the day. Then when he come out, they all pounce on him. Buddha! And then he goes, oh, you're here. Come, let's talk. They will walk and he will teach them. He will explain to the monks. So he has been waylaid by monks so that he had to give them a Dhamma talk. And then he will have conversation with them. They contradict him. I'm not sure if you know this. You read my book, you will know. But there was this very cute one where, remember monks today, Theravada monks today, they eat only one meal, right? Once upon a time, they had 3 meals. Okay, when they all started out, they can have 3 meals. Then along the way, the Buddha took away 1 meal, the evening meal, and have 2 meals. The monk said to him, Bante, you take away meal, you take away the best one. Dinner is where they give the best food. Why you take it away? So they asked him. Then he took away another meal. And at some point, they only had 1 meal. Okay? Now they complain. Buddha says, I take 1 meal a day and I feel healthy and I feel fine. The monk said, Bante, we take 3 meals a day, we feel healthy and we feel fine. This was how they talked to Buddha. It's hilarious. It's hilarious, but you don't know whether to cry or not. And at its end of life journey, which I will be talking about later, at the end of his life, in the entire journey, a few hundred kilometers, entire journey, 80-year-old man walking entire few hundred meters, sick, by the way. Every place he stopped, he taught Dhamma. He taught lay people, monastic, reinforced the Dhamma, got them all hyped up because he knew it was his last journey, but he will still teach to the end. A teacher to the end, okay? Qualities of the Buddha. What are some of the common impressions of the Buddha? I want to highlight just a few. I mean, there's a lot of things to say, but we're just going to highlight a few. Buddha was very pragmatic. I've mentioned this before, right? Not theoretical, go straight to the point. Make sure this is what you can use. Whatever that he taught, it was enough for enlightenment. He didn't waste time. He was not interested in philosophical debates. And have you heard of this cute little analogy that he used for people who wants to know, who ask all kinds of who speculated wildly, all kinds of doctrine and all. And he said, those who indulge in speculation are like people who have been shot with a poison arrow, but they don't want to be treated until they know who made this arrow, what kind of material it was used to make arrow. So this is non-essentials. This is an example of non-essentials, okay? Buddha was simple, contented, no heirs. He never traveled with an entourage. For years, the first 20 years of his life, he had no one with him. Only much later he had, only later. And this is where my theory is, I think he became a bit more sick. So he started to have, or he was older, he started to have some problems. I'm pretty sure he had problems. I mean, we know he has backache. When you have backache, you need someone to help you carry things. And I think that was why he started having an attendant. But for first 20 years, probably he didn't. Look, remember the case of Angulimala? 19th year, if I remember correctly, my facts, 19th year was the conversion of Angulimala. He went alone. He didn't come with an entourage of monks to scare Angulimala. Don't have. He went alone. So for years, Buddha traveled alone. No entourage. He didn't expect people to serve him. He didn't expect people to run around, dance around him. Here was the Buddha traveling alone, goes for alms alone, expected no service. 9th year, Kosambi, he went alone into the forest, right? So Buddha never expected anything. Only when he needed someone to help him, then the Sangha appointed someone for him. Even then, mind you, when Sangha appointed the attendant, some of them really jialat one. There was one attendant, Ananda was the celebrated one, but there was one attendant who was so jialat, he carried the Buddha's thing, then he saw a mango grove he likes. So he told Buddha, I want to go there and meditate. Buddha said, don't go there. He said, I want to go there and meditate. Buddha said, don't go there. I want to go there and meditate. Buddha said, then you go your own. He put the bowl down. Buddha's robe, Buddha's bowl, he put it on the floor. He was going there to meditate. Then know what happened to this fellow? He couldn't meditate. He couldn't meditate because this place, in the previous life, he had big problems there. So now he's drawn back to that place, you see. I cannot remember what big problems he had, but in a different life, he had a big death or one of those big things. So he ran back to the Buddha. I couldn't meditate. Buddha said, I told you, don't go. You listen to me. So this was one case. Another case, mind you, this was his attendant. In another case, this crazy fella went to complain about the Buddha. One of Buddha's biggest supporters was a group of ruling class called the Wajan. You heard of it, right? The Wajans. Powerful people. They were one of Buddha's biggest supporters. This monk, his attendant monk, went to complain against the Buddha in the Wajan parliament. The Wajans come together, sit together, they have exchanges and all. He went and complained about Buddha, about how he was a fake practitioner, nothing he thought was real, and so on and so forth. It was a whole story. It's a scandal. This is your closest disciple, right? Your attendant monk complained against you that you are not a good practitioner. So he had a lot of problems. It's not everything roses, a bit of roses for the Buddha. Later I'll talk more about that. Buddha was humble and formal all through his life, easily accessible. And I said, monks will hang around. Lay people can visit him. Mind you, you don't need to make appointment. No need. You just go and at the door, and he will open door. It's found in the sutta. The lay person will go up and say, I'm looking for Buddha. And then his disciple will say, oh, okay, that kuti there, that's where he stay. You just go and stand down there, you open the door. Then you knock, tak, 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 and then you open door. And that's exactly what they did. No special prayers, no mudras, bowing, no need make appointment, no need telephone. Hello, Buddha, can I see you this afternoon? No need so difficult, no secretary, no nothing. Simple, contented, humble person. Oh yeah, this is what I said many times. No rules on how to pay respect. Buddha we know, love seclusion. Because all the key events in his life were in the forest. Every time it's important, he goes there. He loves spending time there. But the bulk of the Buddha's life was actually spent in urban centers. Jetavana was in what's the capital? I forgot the capital of Kosala. Savatthi. Jetavana was in Savatthi. And even Uluwela was near Rajakaha, near the center. So he chose these centers to make it accessible to people. The whole idea of a place, to stay put in a place, is so that you can teach the Dhamma. You want to park your Dhamma on top of Mount Everest, nobody can visit. So he never did that. He actually moved it near, or rather, his time was spent in places which was near people. Okay, he wasn't unaccessible. He had warm friendliness. We know there are many examples in the suttas with him talking to people. He's welcoming, kindly. This is quote about Buddha. Kindly of speech, courteous, genial. He would strike out conversations with stranger. But it is not you find the weather nice or not? It wasn't that kind of frivolous talk. His conversation were all started with a Dhamma objective in mind. So when he struck out a conversation, it was him noting that there is something to teach and to guide for the individual. Okay. In other words, he was not an arrogant, stuck-up person. He was simple, easy, friendly. Can you just imagine what it would feel like to run into him on the street? Can you just put your mind to it? You will even know that it's the Buddha. Because there were many cases where people didn't recognize Buddha. Which means to say physically, he would have looked like the next person, just better looking. Tan, tall, handsome, nice looking, but does not look different from a regular person. Okay? Buddha was always considerate of the imposition on laity. That is why he had only one meal. Because he didn't want to impose on laity. There were instances, mind you, this is found, you can go read the Dhammapada, you will find it. There were instances where monks keep going up to the same laity because they cook good food. So they're all lining up there. The poor fellow kept feeding these monks that had not enough to eat for themselves. So Buddha had to can you stop it? Don't do this anymore. You stop them from abusing, from taking advantage of the kindness of laity. Okay? He reminded his monk, you must be mindful of your practice so that by your presence, you inspire and not repel. This was so important because the Sangha is the walking representation, the epitome of Dhamma. The people don't know Dhamma, they cannot understand it. So what you can understand is from what you can see from a Sangha member, right? If a Sangha member is mindful, is very well practiced, you are so inspired. Your heart is your heart will sing with joy when you see the Sangha. This is what the Buddha said. Please be inspirational, okay? Okay, be inspirational. Buddha was open to suggestions. Introducing Dhamma talk on Uposatha Day, suggestion by Bimbisara. Observing Vasa, suggestion by Bimbisara. So it was lay people who told him what would work. Why don't you try that? And so he did. Gracious. Give it to all to you. Must have been excellent company. Gracious and excellent company. You know why? Because in the sutta, you will find this. You will find all these people, ascetics from other schools, not his monks. They see him come in, they go, hey, don't talk nonsense. if we all talk wisely, he may come and join us and he will teach us a thing or two. These are not his monks, you know. These are people from rival schools wanting him to sit with them and teach them, share with them something. Aren't you proud of him? Don't you feel that he's such an unusual character? No air, no frills, entertaining, because these guys want him to come and sit with them. They tell each other, hey, don't talk nonsense. He doesn't like it. He doesn't like people to bark. So all kinds of people will go to him. All kinds of people will ask for his help. Now, not everything was fun. As I said, not his life wasn't a bed of roses. In fact, it is a bed of roses, but with all the thorns. These are some of the I got two parts to this, extremely eventful post-enlightenment life, okay? We know frequently he gets chauvinistic disdain, even verbal abuse from especially Brahmins. We know that. In fact, there was even, if you go to my book, you will see this. I repeated the story in there. They had people who, before they do their ritual, you know, must be auspicious, right? They see a monk botak coming from afar, they went, stop, don't come here. After that, this one became unlucky, not auspicious anymore. That kind of things happen in his time, okay? Extreme hostility from rival schools for himself led to at least two court cases framed for murder of Sundari, accused of impregnating Chincha Manawika. These are historical instances where they actually, if you go through the story, right, it's actually quite an elaborate plot. It's elaborate. Example, this Sundari case, they buried the body near to the I think it was Jetawana, near to Jetawana. Sooner or later, you'll be unveiled on. Like it's buried superficial grave. So they, of course, they uncovered him, her, and they went after the monks. And because they couldn't prove anything, they couldn't charge anyone. But for a week, the whole scandal lasted about a week. Monks were abused when they go for rounds. I mean, your first precept is no killing. They got one body found outside your monastery. Why? Can you explain? I cannot remember how it was resolved, but it was resolved, it was unveiled that it was her own teacher that murdered her and framed the Buddha. And the other case, Chincha Manawika, it's a 9-month plot. For 9 months, this auntie made her way to, I think this is also Jetawana. This lady would make her way in the evening. Now, evening is when no layperson will be in the monastery. Okay, this is ancient India. This is not Singapore at 9 o'clock. This is ancient India. So evening, nobody goes to monastery, but she would go. Then she will stay outside, not inside, but it doesn't matter. People see you go. And then she will come out and leave in the morning for 9 months. 9 months later, she said she had this fake bulge and said, you don't take responsibility for your action, huh? King Saka sent a rat to solve his problem. So apparently the story is the rat came and chewed away the binding. So the false pregnancy was uncovered. So he was helped, okay? But this is what happened. Now, this is small thing. You know how Moggallana was killed, right? He was brutally murdered because he's a second chief disciple, the psychic monk. They thought it would weaken the order with his death. So this is a very serious thing. He had to endure. This one is the regular debates. I have no time to keep going through details, but all these, in his lifetime, he had to endure all kinds of arguments. Where he visited this country, this place for the first time, Vatsa Kingdom, People were heckling at him, heckle at him, but they were paid by the concubine of the king to go and bully the Buddha and the monks. For 7 days, they were bullied left, right, center when they go for alms. It's not all bed of roses. There were serious problems that he faced. People will all be quite demoralized, but not the Buddha. Buddha will just pass all these events. He'll tell his monk, don't worry, they will pass. So he walked the talk. The monks were, Buddha, let's get out of here. Why are we here? What are we doing here? Let's get out of here. Then he says, just wait, don't worry, it will pass. And indeed, they did pass. Okay? And in his lifetime, many people preceded him, including his wife. Yasodhara died before him. Chief disciples died before him. Now, some of you will say, Buddha is not affected. No, he wasn't. Not in the way that we are. But you must know that his chief disciples, his chief patrons, these are people who had visited him and be with him for years, 40 years in some cases. How can he not have any reaction? So if you look at the suttas very carefully, there was actually one sutta where the Buddha looked around and said, now that the two chief disciples are gone, the hall felt emptier. So he did experience, he did have a reaction. But of course, he wasn't wailing like us. We would have wailed, right? Witness the massacre of his kinsmen. The last year, couple of years, I think, before the end. Pasenadi's son, Widudabba, wanted to take revenge on his family, the Sakyan. And okay, the details, we got no time to go into, but there is a whole story there. Anyhow, the Buddha tried to stop it. 1 time, 2 times, the 3rd time he let it be. He went in and slaughtered. There was a big battle. So both died. I mean, both sides were damaged, severely damaged. Okay? 两败俱伤. So anyhow, this side, all these stories of recalcitrant monks. You look at the story. Okay, we know the Kausambi story. They fought over treatment of toilet water. So they told him to be pleasantly abiding. Bye-bye, you just go. The gangster 6 intimidated, bullied other monks. The greedy who insisted on having 3 square meals. I told you all these stories already. The helpful accomplices to murder monks. I'm telling you, if you go read the Vinaya, actually, Ajahn Brahm wrote a book on the Vinaya rules, and you can find it online. Many of these stories are there, okay? And there were a few stories of how monks helped abort. There was a monk who helped with abortion of a child, and there were monks who I can't remember, but there was one crazy one who went around and beheaded other monks. So you have all these funny stories. The second defeat on stealing was because one monk stole timber to build his kuti. Stole the king's timber to build kuti. The ambitious cousin, the murderer's cousin, you know that. Oh, the family of monastics sat down and had meals together. Husband, wife, the wife entered the order as a nun, the son and the husband entered as monk. Every evening they sit down together, have dinner. The Buddha said, why are you even a monk? Another one who's a rich man joined the Sangha with his furniture. He decorated his kuti very, very nicely. So much so that lay people, when they visit this monastery, right, they will ask to see his kuti because it's very nice. So his kuti becomes tourist spot. A lot, okay? And the monks were always looking for loopholes. That is why our monastic rule was so wrong, because they're looking for loopholes. Example, there was one monk. This one not PGs, RA. So you're careful. Huh? You know the first defeat, no sex. And so there are actually rules. If you go and look at the rule books, right, they're very specific. You cannot have sex with a corpse. No sex with a corpse, which means to say, why would that even come up as a rule? No sex with animal, no sex with corpse. It's actually in the rules. Why would that even come up? Because someone tried to, wrong? Must have been, right? Okay, don't ask me, okay? Handling mortality. Now, we will stretch a bit. Mahaparinibbana Sutta. I don't want to go into detail. You can read the book. But I wanted to show you, okay, just because we don't have time, I will show you his last days. And I think we should pay attention to some things. Mahaparinibbana Sutta, Digha Nikaya 16, actually started in a very unusual way. It started with two of Ajatasattu's minister visiting the Buddha and consulting him on the outcome of a possible battle. The two ministers was tasked by King Ajatasattu to go find out from Buddha whether he is going to win the war against the Wajan. So you see, this is one kingdom. Buddha was at that time staying in the kingdom, Magadha kingdom. Okay, neighbor just across the causeway is the Wajan Republic. And this sutta started off with these two ministers of Ajatasattu visiting the Buddha and asking him whether their king will win the fight against the Wajan. So what does it say? And the Buddha said, as long he didn't answer them. He turned to Ananda and he asked Ananda, do you know if the Wajan are still observing the 7 conditions of welfare? So this is the 7 conditions of welfare. Sit together, stand together, consult regularly, honor each other's spouse, and so on and so forth. Okay. So basically, they don't do anything. They do everything that will build harmony. They avoid any action that will cause conflict. Buddha asked Ananda, are they observing it? And then he didn't answer the minister. He said, as long as they observe these 7 conditions of welfare, they are invincible. They cannot be defeated. Guess what the minister did? The Buddha was subtly telling them, you can't win, right? But the ministers, they all decided, then we must break the condition. So we must split it. We know what to do, sir. They went off with the wrong teaching, right? The wrong conclusion. Then the Buddha summoned the monk urgently. They had an emergency meeting of the Sangha. And he reminded the Sangha, they must observe the 7 conditions so that they can stay united. Okay? And after that, he said he was leaving Rajagaha to undertake a 300 kilometers journey. Actually, it's more than 300. It is likely that he was heading towards Kosala kingdom, towards his own family home. It's likely because that is the journey back. But he stopped at Kusinara. He stopped at Kusinara where he passed on. And that distance was 300 kilometers or thereabout. And it took him a little less than a year to complete this journey. And every step, and by the way, Mahaparinibbana Sutta is very long. It's a compilation of the last days of the Buddha's life. So you read every town, every village, he stopped and he gave Dhamma talk. Every stop, he will stop, give Dhamma talk. He was teaching all the way. Along the way, there was one village, small little village. He felt terribly sick, really sick. And this is before mushroom incident, okay, or the pig incident. He felt really sick, so much so that Ananda thought he was going to die. But he made himself well. He forced the mind to overcome the bodily pain because he knew the Sangha were waiting for him. You must know, by this time, Sariputta and Moggallana were no more. There was no senior leaders with him at that time. There was only Ananda, and some of the Sakyan brothers, but Sakyan cousins were there with him. And he forced himself to recover. He forced his mind to tame this body pain. Using the Bhujangas, he recovered. Ananda happily chirped to the Buddha. I'm so happy you're well. I'm so happy to see you come out and sit in the out. Because Buddha got up and went to sit at the veranda. And Ananda, I'm so happy to see you, Buddha. For a while there, I was so scared you will pass on. You cannot go. You cannot die without talking to the Sangha. Ananda was asking the Buddha to anoint a successor. And this is where the Buddha said, let the Dhamma Vinaya be the guide. Let that be your guide. He's not anointing any successor. It was here, okay? And then the next big incident was that lunch provided. Goldsmith's son, I think it was a goldsmith's son, provided him with a meal, which probably was bad food. So he had food poisoning. He tasted it, he knew something was wrong. He told the host, bury it, no one must eat this, just bury it, which he did. But then after that came the sharp decline of Buddha. He was really dying. After that meal, it was a very sharp decline. For me, one very memorable incident was he came to a river. He sat down and he told Ananda to get him water. And Ananda said, Buddha, the caravan just went past. The water is all dirty. Cannot. Buddha said, I need water. Get me some water. 3 times he asked. Waited a while. So it was said that the gods came, clean up the water so that the Buddha could have a drink. It was really that bad. He got up, he struggled on. Anyway, for the details, go read Mahaparinibbana Sutta, okay? Last disciple, Subhadda, very memorable. There was this monk, ascetic who went up to the Buddha and said, and asked about the Dhamma. He came and he asked to see the Buddha. And Ananda said to Subhadda, don't disturb the Buddha, he's tired. And this man said, no, I need to speak to the Buddha. I need to. I came all the way here to ask him questions. You must let me see him. Ananda said, no, he was very tired. He's been walking the whole day. This is a man who had diarrhea, food poisoning, obviously in a very bad shape. Then the Buddha told Ananda, let Subhadda approach. He will not vex me. He will ask, he is a genuine seeker. He will ask a good question and he will understand. So Buddha agreed to see one last person at his deathbed. Literally, this is down to the last 24 hours. Then he allowed, and the rest is history. He joined the order. He understood, he joined the order. And eventually he realized Nibbana, this Subhadda, okay? And there are many more of these really wonderful stories. I think there's one more, yeah. Last 24 hours, met the lay people, the people of the Malans, the people in the land. Kusinara is a place that is in the land of the Malas. And he allowed the lay people from nearby villages to come pay last respect, to say their goodbye. Of course, they all came and it's very emotional, but not the Buddha. The last thing that he did for his monks was to ask them, you had any more questions? But this little part to me was very touching. He asked them, do you have any question? Then they all kept quiet. And then he said, if you're too shy to ask, talk to the person next to you, get him to ask. So look at him, right down to that last minute, he was still considerate. He was still mindful that there are people who are shy and might need some help to ask questions. And then when all was said and done, his very last moment was to go and have clarity of the mind. When you talk about jhana, so usually people focus about him going up and down the jhana route. The point here is that the mind was so clear, he was in jhana, steady all the way to the end. Okay? So what's the story for us? What can we learn? Mortality is a natural phenomenon. Don't ignore it. Don't be in denial. Don't live a lie. Acknowledge it. Be honest about it. Do whatever is necessary. Set your affairs in order. Say your goodbye properly. Just accept it. Okay? There are physical discomfort is a given. Towards the end, it is almost always a given. Bear with it patiently and graciously. To accept the problems of the form as it is makes it easier on everyone else. Imagine if he had suffered and he had been telling everyone his ailment in detail. The disciples wouldn't be able to take it. Maintain mental equilibrium and clarity. Okay? This point is the lesson of what he did in his last journey. The essential was the Dhamma. He need to inspire, gladden, give them conviction, help them to keep going with regards to Dhamma. So everything that he did in that last year was all about protecting, preserving the Dhamma. Okay? Buddha was extremely considerate, extremely sensitive of the people around him. I didn't mention this little story. Ananda was very attached to the Buddha. If you read the sutta, you know his heart was breaking. He went aside and he cried. Ananda was crying away. The Buddha brought him in, talked to him, comforted him, told everyone he was a good boy. He was a very good practitioner. He will be all right. Ananda, don't worry about it, and so on and so forth. So Buddha was comforting Ananda. And this, for me, is the consideration behind this teaching. Be considerate of the people around you. Be understanding of their attachment. Look after their emotion. Okay? Teaching Dhamma to the literal end. So, what was his legacy? This is very important. For us, today, what is unique and special about Buddha was that he laid a solid foundation of practitioners, both monastic and lay, with the clarity and insight so that they can guide the next generations of practitioners. If it were not for Buddha having done that excellent job, they cannot survive his death. You think about it. In fact, there was this exchange between Buddha and Mara, and Mara was instigating the Buddha to, time to go, boss, time to go. And the Buddha said, I will do it only when my communities of monastic and lay, both laymen, laywomen, monks, nuns, when that community is anchored on the Dhamma, they understand the Dhamma, they know the practice, they're very clear what they're supposed to do, and they can survive me, my passing, I will go. And when he was sure that that had happened, he let go of life. Just let be. And let conditions be. Okay? Brilliant choice of the first generation of Sangha. You see, when the Buddha passed on, when he was gone, how do you hold an order together? I will be giving a separate lecture on this, okay? But today I will just say it was a crisis of the first order. You see, today you have only Buddhism left, and Jainism is a very small sect in India. But only Buddhism is left in a big way. Everyone else is gone. Huh? They all never survived the death of their founders. Okay? These first generation of Sangha devised a system of compiling and organizing the Buddha's teaching for transmission. It is not just learning well for themselves, but they were so inspired that they came together, organized the material so that it can survive their own generation. The Sangha of the generations had been so inspired to look after, to preserve the Dhamma, to pass on generations after generations. Okay? So his life work is the Dhamma and the Sangha surviving the centuries against overwhelming odds. If you know the history of Buddhism, you will sweat, knowing how often it came close to extinction. It is not Dhamma will survive. It took effort on everybody's part in their time to protect the Dhamma. Because Dhamma is not easy to understand, right? It is sublime. How do you preserve something that you don't understand? It is not easy. It's very difficult. But it worked. For whatever it is, it worked. Sangha is the world's oldest training system, training your mind to see the Dhamma. Undergone modification along the way, but the structure is still ancient. And it is still powerfully inspiring so that generations of practitioners, monastic practitioners, will keep it alive at all costs. Great personal risk, great personal sacrifices to preserve the Dhamma. That's why I said our lay people, our lay supporters, it is your duty, your job, your responsibility to preserve the Dhamma, keep it alive, and make sure it stays and pass on to the next generation. It is your job. As generations of practitioners have preserved it for us, we too must do our part to preserve it for the next generation. Last 100 years, pioneering Sangha, bringing Dhamma to the rest of the world. It all happened in the last 100 years. How amazing this is. So, should we answer questions first? Huh, Eileen? I'm sorry it lasted so long.
Thank you, Sis Sylvia. That was an inspiring session. We have a few questions here. Okay. Somebody asked how, other than being a good example for others, how can we propagate the Dhamma? Is it? Okay.
For those of you who are interested in the answer, the ones that I spotted, I have already answered that.
Okay. So
we go to the ones that I haven't touched.
Oh. Okay, dear Sister Sylvia, Did Buddha fulfill his duties as a father and husband?
Read my book. Yes. Yes. We tend to judge the Buddha using mundane rule, measurement. We judge the Buddha. You ask a question like this, you are actually judging the Buddha using mundane, secular rules. Because you perceive, your assumption is the husband and the father must provide for the family. A few things that you must note. Number one, his family is rich, was rich. In terms of material provision, you don't need Buddha there. The family would have been able to more than amply provide materially. Right? But we know that in terms of relationship with each other, material provision cannot be your only measurement. You must provide emotional support, psychological support. Hence, there was this point that the Buddha made when he went back to his farm, when he went back and visited the Sakyan, and the son went up to the father and asked for his heritage. The father said, the Buddha said, the mundane heritage would only give him dukkha. He got Sariputta, I think it was Sariputta, who to ordain the boy. And then he took this 7-year-old Rahula with him into the Sangha. And for the next many years, Rahula was with the Buddha, all the way until he was 19 years old. He was learning from the father, learning from the Buddha. So the Buddha, in the period of the boy's life where he can understand and he can choose to practice, he was trained by the Buddha. We know Rahula Wada, Buddha went to teach the little boy not to lie, right? Rahula Wada. And subsequently, the Buddha guided the boy into realization, Nibbana. So this was, for people who say, he left when the boy, what can you do with a baby? But he came back to teach, to guide, to help this boy realize Nibbana. You can't ask for more than that, you know, if you think about it. You go by the spiritual path, Buddha took on the responsibility of guiding him. He more than fulfilled his duty as a father, more than fulfilled. He fulfilled his duty as a son. He went back and guided his father to Nibbana. He fulfilled his duty to Prajapati, Mahaprajapati Gotami, his stepmother. And of course, when Yasodhara joined the Sangha, they also realized Nibbana. That kind of support that he gave them is immeasurable. Compared to your lay support, your lay secular, simplistic way of looking at things, simplistic rules. Okay?
Thank you, Sis Sylvia. Was there ever an occasion when the Buddha scolded?
You know, we ask questions with certain biases and assumptions. In our mind, when a person scolds, it means he is reflecting anger. When the Buddha used certain words, it was with the intent of awakening someone. And his words were all tailored to trigger a result that will help the person attain, realize. So if you say, did he scold? The assumption I'm reading, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm reading you say that, oh, scolding means got anger. No, Buddha had no defilement. He had no agitation, but he had used words which you today will say it must be a scolding. He used the word balo. which means you fool. But if you think about it, right? If you think about it, if an individual joined the Sangha but end up messing his own practice because they cannot let go of loba dosa moha, aren't they fools? You have enough merits to join the Sangha, and you choose to bring your loba dosa moha into the Sangha and stain the place. That kind of act can get you into hell. Aren't you fools? So Buddha wasn't wrong when he said, you balo, you're going to kill yourself. Why did you do that? So he has to use strong words to wake people up. Okay?
Thank you.
One more question? Choose wisely.
Choose wisely.
Eileen can't
There's
choose.
another one, two. What is asking about the suttas, whether they are taught to non-humans?
Yes,
and
there were Mangala
yes.
Sutta.
No, yeah, and whether they attain any level of enlightenment after that.
I have not seen one where it is said that a Deva entered the stream or something. I don't recall coming across that. Do you? But I do know.
I think I did recently. I think Ajahn
Was it?
Brahmali sent a sutta. Said that he saw the Dhamma or something like that.
Yes, I cannot offhand recall. But it is not correct to say that you cannot practice as a Dewa. That one is incorrect. Because I vaguely recall suttas where yes, there was this sutta where the Devas, it was said that you must practice as much as you can as a human. Then when you become, say, you practice very well, you're a good person, you will be reborn a Deva, right? And then it was said in the sutta, some of them, because they were listening to a Dhamma talk by someone, they realized. Remember that sutta? They're listening to a Dhamma talk sometimes they will realize because they recall. Sometimes as a Deva, sometimes they will realize when some of their friends, their fellow Karyana Mita Deva friends, reminded them of the Dhamma. And then in some cases, it's because they were listening to a lay person giving a talk, a monastic, a human giving a talk, and they realized. So this is my example, yes, that it is possible to continue practicing and to realize in the Deva realm.
Okay, there's this last question because there are two who asked basically nearly the same thing. I heard another talk that Nibbana means extinguishment. Do enlightened beings still exist on some other plane then? Another person asked, where is Buddha now?
This is one of the unanswerable. If the Buddha doesn't answer, I don't answer. If the Buddha decided in his time he will not answer, why are we asking this question? When you realize, then you'll know for yourself. Any more?
Okay, somebody asked where can you get your books? So I'll answer this.
Yes, you will answer this.
You come to Buddhist Fellowship and it's all for free distribution at our center.
Okay.
Yes. Our last one is there your course, fundamental Dhamma course this year? It is, yes, it's supposed to start in June, but because of the COVID situation, it has been postponed till maybe look out for it in...
Be advised.
To be advised, yes.
To be advised, no choice. We want to keep safe. It is also practicing in accordance with the Dhamma to behave responsibly to our fellow human beings. behave responsibly. Okay?
Thank you,
Okay.
Sis Sylvia.
Sadhu.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
I just want to end with this slide on ingratitude, because we have spent 2 days listening to the Dhamma, enjoying the Dhamma. I hope you all had enjoyed the talk. Enjoy not just my talk, all the talks that you have sat through today and yesterday with Ajahn Brahmali. And if you have experienced joy listening to the Dhamma, I want to urge everyone to honor the teacher, our teacher, by being chaga. Donate, help, give support of time and energy to a worthy charity or spiritual organization. And on this score, I want to remind everyone that Buddhist Fellowship, which has so kindly made it possible for us to enjoy the Dhamma, they will be building a new center. So if any of you are very keen to support Dhamma propagation and support Buddhist Fellowship, please come forward, approach the office, offer your dana, okay? 2 final points. We must never take for granted the blessings that we enjoy this life. Our forerunners, our predecessors had done right. That's why we have these blessings. We must continue to do right for those who come after. May the Dhamma last long. May we continue to enjoy supportive conditions for learning and practice. And may we never deviate from the true teaching as long as life lasts.